Well, welcome into Instant Reaction, an Indianapolis Colts podcast. I'm your host, Casey Vallier, joined as always by Colts Ring of Honor wide receiver Bill Brooks. A tough game in Pittsburgh. The Colts, they fall to the Steelers 27-20. They now sit at 7-2. Bill, sometimes it's just not your day, and I think offensively, it just wasn't the Colts' day.
No, it was not the Colts day today. They didn't do too many things well today. They did a lot of turning the ball over. Five turnovers on the offense, and when you turn the ball over that many times, you're not giving yourself an opportunity to win ball games, and you're giving the other team opportunities to go down and score, especially get good field position. And definitely with someone like Aaron Rodgers, you don't want to give him many opportunities at all. So when you give opportunities to someone like that, it's going to be tough to win football games. And give the Steelers credit. They create those turnovers, and they caused Daniel Jones to have some turnovers. And the offensive line didn't do as well as they wanted to do as far as protecting Daniel Jones back there when he was throwing the ball. So there's enough blame to go around for a lot of individuals out there in the football field, but there's one of those games where the Colts did not play their best.
No, absolutely. I mean, you talk about five turnovers on offense. They had six total for the game. They had the muff punt by Josh Downs early that set the Steelers up inside the 20. They did not score on that one, but you talk about, we'll dive into all of this, but a lot of times, the game of football, it breaks down to some stats that make it look very easy, if you will, and a lot of times turnovers kind of tell what the story is, and the Colts lose today. The turnover margin 6-1, and the Steelers were able to score 24 points off of those turnovers, and ultimately they scored just 27 points today. So if you take away those turnovers, that was a big part of the game. But as we typically do, we're going to dive into kind of three major topics here on Instant Reaction. So I figured we would start with some of the positives. I thought the defense played really good football today. I also thought that Michael Badgley looked really, really comfortable. And it was one of those things that throughout his time here with the Colts since the Spencer Schrader injury, you really haven't had to ask him to do a whole lot because the offense has been rolling. You haven't had to, really test that distance on what he had. And today he was able to knock down two 50-plus yard field goals. So I think that was, a very nice sign from the kicking game. But then also, finally, I think as we wrap, we got to talk about the lack of the complementary football, which a lot of times is what Shane Steichen has been talking about. The success that the Colts have had this year has been a lot of that. It is playing complementary football in all three phases, and today the offensive side didn't really have that side of football that we've seen through 8 weeks. But like I said, Bill, we're going to start defensively. I thought the defense played really, really well. There was a lot of sudden change, and a couple times, as I mentioned, the Steelers took over inside the red zone, 24 points off of takeaways, but the Steelers were just 33% on third down. The Colts defense held the Steelers to 225 total yards of offense, 187 through the air, just 36 rushing yards today. Jaylen Warren did score a couple times, but outside of, those inside the three-yard line, he wasn't being able to move the football. The Steelers were just 3 of 6 inside the red zone. So I think when you look at all of those things, typically it results in a positive outcome, especially the way the Colts offense has been rolling. That would have typically been really, really good. But I thought the defense had a pretty good game today.
Yeah, I think that there's some nice things today. Of course, they got a couple of sacks there. You got, Latu had 2.5 sacks. So, I thought he did some nice things out there, putting pressure on Aaron Rodgers. And I thought the coach did a nice job. Now, it was tough to get to Aaron Rodgers because a lot of times the ball was coming out of his hands real quick. But when Aaron did hold it, I thought the coach did a nice job of getting to him at times. So give the defense credit for that. And I thought, as you said, Case, the defense, a lot of times they're put in bad positions to, stop after the offense has turned the ball over. And defense, especially on that first one, offense didn't turn the ball over, but it was on that punt, muff punt by Josh Downs. They did a nice job of keeping the Steelers out of the end zone from scoring any points at all. So that was good to see the defense do that, where they stepped up and did their job of stopping the Steelers. So defense did a nice job. I mean, of course, there's things to improve on in regards to the defense, but I thought the defense stepped up when they needed to and made some plays out there. You had Kenny Moore make some nice tackles. I thought he did a good job tackling out there, so he's a good tackler. He's one of the surer tackles on the team back there in defense, so give them credit. And Jalen Jones play for the first time, so he had an opportunity to get out there and do some things. And so it was good to see him. I know he broke up a pass or two out there during the game, so it was good to see him back out there on the field. So there are some things you can look at and say, okay, this is a positive. This is a positive from the defense. This is a positive. But like anything else, you still have some things to work on and get better. So hopefully they will do that this week and get better at that before they go out to Berlin.
Now, I want to talk about a guy you mentioned there in Latu. I mean, he had a really, really impactful day. He was second on the team with 6 tackles, but he also had 2.5 sacks and 3 tackles for loss. It's kind of been one of those things we've been waiting to see it come home for Latu. He's been getting close, getting a lot of pressure, but I thought today he really made his presence known. And I'm sure, when he looks back at his stats, and maybe, I mean, maybe in the offseason or down the road, being able to get 2.5 sacks on Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure that is something that he's always going to be able to hold pretty dear to his chest, because that's something that's going to be pretty cool. He's going to keep that with him for a long time.
Yeah, he should. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he's gone in the Hall of Fame. So,
Yes.
you sacked the Hall of Famer a couple of times. So I'm sure he should feel good about that. Once his career is over and looks back over his career, he should feel good about that. And the thing about Latu, he's been working hard. Everyone says he's been working hard and keep on pushing and pushing and pushing every day in practice. And that's what you want to see from young guys, to continue to work, continue to work, continue to work. And I don't think that's ever going to be a problem for Latu, because he prepares himself pretty well. And that's, Shane talks about preparation, guys being prepared and working and being ready for the game. So I think he's doing that, especially for a young man to do that. That says a lot about him. He wants to get better. He wants to help the team out. So if he keeps on working, and you knew that it was close to sometime he's going to get there, to get those quarterback sacks and get the guys down. So he's working at it, and it's coming to fruition for him. And all the work that he's putting in is paying off. So as long as he keeps on working, I think he will get better and improve and continue to get those sacks.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned also Jalen Jones. It was nice to see him get back on the field. But one of the things I was pretty impressed by, we had talked in the pregame show that it was essentially DK Metcalf and then a collection of kind of tight ends is essentially what the Steelers' offense was. And I think the Colts did a really good job of limiting DK Metcalf. He just had 2 catches for 6 yards. That right there in itself is something very, very impressive, because this was a game that I remember I circled, early in the year, of this is probably a game where you're going to want Charvarius Ward to shut down and kind of shadow DK Metcalf. Charvarius Ward, of course, is on IR. So I think the Colts had a really good game plan of limiting what DK Metcalf can do. I mean, ultimately, 2 catches for 6 yards, that's essentially eliminating him from the game. Now, we did see some of the tight ends get involved. I know Freiermuth scored a touchdown. Darnell Washington was very heavily targeted. But I think for the most part, you talked about Jalen Jones getting back, and that's only going to help this Colts secondary as he kind of gets back into football shape and starts, getting back well acquainted with what this Colts defense can do. I thought today was a pretty good step for what that Colts secondary can look like moving forward.
Yeah, you want to see those guys get back in there. If you get those guys, Jalen Jones gets back, and then you got Travarius Ward coming back, and Mekhi Blackman continue to playing, so all the other guys playing as well. You're going to have a nice group of secondary individuals back there. Not only the ones that will start, but they're also depth. So you got guys, you can roll guys in, roll guys out. If guys get nicked up for a game and have to miss a game or two, you feel confident in putting those other guys in there because they've gotten some experience, and hopefully, Jalen gets his legs back up under him. It's going to take him a little time to get his legs back up under him, but I think he did a nice job for just getting out there for the first time and going up against DK Metcalf and some other receivers out there, because he's a handful. He's a big
Yeah.
man, strong, very powerful. Can run you over once he catches the ball. So, I thought they did a nice job on DK and kind of limiting him to really being a non-factor today in the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Now, I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I thought we saw a lot of positives out of Michael Badgley. Since Spencer Schrader's injury, I mentioned the Colts really haven't put themselves in tough spots where they've had to, kind of test long field goals out. And that's been one thing throughout Michael Badgley's career is, when it comes to 50 yards and plus, it's not been something that he has made at a high level. definitely capable of doing that. And I think we saw that today. He was able to knock down two 50-yard field goals, a 52 and a 53-yarder today for the Colts. And ultimately, those were big points because it was, you're trying to play that game of how many possessions can we limit? We've got to be able to score. And like there, that late one, I mean, it was, hey, we're going to get down the field. We're going to clock the ball. We're going to run out there to try to give ourselves an opportunity. So, quick in as far as the mental part of everything goes. And I thought he was able to step in and really look pretty good from knocking down a couple long field goals.
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty good. As you mentioned, a 52-yarder and a 53-yarder, and doing those and kicking those, and especially in kind of pressure situation, especially for the last one, you get that field goal, and then all of a sudden you have an opportunity to, if you get the onside kick, you never know, Hail Mary, you never know what happens. You score,
Right.
tie the game up, and go in overtime. But it's good for an offense when you know that if you get into at a certain yard line that you know what this guy can consistently make a field goal for us. That feels good for the offense, knowing that we are going to get some points out of it. So I'm sure Shane feels good about that, knowing that, hey, look, if we get to this point, we can get 3 points. But knowing Shane likes to go for it on fourth down.
Yeah.
If you saw that today, the team was 5 for 5 on fourth down. So that was good to see. And then, for an offense, that makes you feel good too, because you know that your head coach has confidence, because head coach and offensive coordinator and play caller, I should say, not offensive coordinator, but head coach and play caller has confidence in you as an offense that, you know what, you can go out there and get a first down on fourth down, or, 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, and he has confidence in you doing that. But also it's good to feel that, you know what, when you're out there and you need 3 points, you can get it from the guy as long as you get within his range, and he can, he can get in there, and you do a good job of snapping it, holding it, and protecting. You have an opportunity to get 3 points.
And I mean, you talk about the fourth down strategy today. It was definitely different. I mean, you had a couple times inside your own territory. You had the
Yes,
fake punt at, I
yes,
think it was the plus 26-yard line. So
yeah.
if you don't
That's
get it, I mean, you're giving the
ooh,
Steelers the football right on the cusp of being inside the red zone. So yes, it was definitely something that they had. I mean, clearly, you game plan, you do all of the
yes.
stuff during the week leading up to it. They saw some areas they could take advantage of on fourth down. They made the most of those. And you talk about going 5 for 5. Now, I do want to switch over to the offense here, Bill. And when you look at everything, not everything is bad. And
No.
you look at a loss and you want to just be hypercritical about everything. But ultimately, I think there was some good things you can take away offensively, and it's starting at the receiver position. I thought both Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr. They both eclipsed 100 yards. They had 115 yards each. Josh Downs had his second straight game with a touchdown. He had over 50 yards receiving. I thought those three guys really looked the part of what the Colts have kind of been all year. We talked about it, the lack of 100-yard receivers through 8 games, which was kind of different because it just showed the diversity inside the offense. I think that was still apparent today. It just got to the point late where you kind of had to abandon the run. So
Yeah.
therefore, instead of it being Taylor getting a couple of those touches, it went to guys like Alec Pierce and Pittman, and both of those guys over 100 yards receiving. I think they both made a really big impact, and also Josh Downs getting into the end zone.
Yeah, they did. I mean, as you said, you're down so many points, and you got to try to get back into the game, especially in the second half. So you're going to throw the ball a little bit to hopefully score and score quickly and give yourself an opportunity to get back into the game and hopefully win a game. And, those two guys, Pittman and Pierce, did a nice job. Pierce started off real hot and early in the game and got the ball a couple of times, but and stayed with it. And, you get Pittman the ball, and Pittman's a tough guy. And he took a big hit there on one hit
Yeah.
from Ramsey there, but he stayed in the game, and didn't. He came back in the game and kept on playing. So getting over 100 yards, him and Pierce. So that's good to see that those guys got over 100 yards. But once again, it was a couple of guys. It wasn't just one person. You got two guys that Daniel Jones can go to, and then, he has more that he can go to. And we've talked about this before. You just want to make sure that they spread the ball around and they stay diverse and getting the ball to different people and doing different things. And Shane does that. He gets the ball to different people. And I shouldn't say Shane does that. He designs the play, and Daniel Jones does it. He goes
Yeah.
out there and executes the play and throws the ball to wherever he thinks is the best option in regards to how the defense is playing the offense. So it's good to see that, and I'm sure that will continue to go forward in regards to, what, it might be someone different each and every week, and it's good to see. But it's real good to see that Pierce and and Pittman making those big plays. And I like to see how Pierce is playing. He's doing a nice job out there, not just running just the deep routes, but the other routes as well. So it's good to see him that he's developing those other routes and running those routes and doing a nice job with that.
Yeah, he really has become a more complete receiver. We've seen
Yes.
it almost week in and week out. He's adding something new to his game that is, just making him even more tough to defend for opposing defenses. We did see the Steelers had a pretty good plan on Tyler Warren. He had
Yeah.
5 catches today for just 26 yards, so that was one of his, least productive as far as the yardage goes of the season. He still did have 5 catches. That's kind of right on par for what we've seen from him. But Jonathan Taylor was another guy that struggled to get going. He had 14 carries for 45 yards on the ground. That's 3.2 yards per carry. Listen to this, Bill. It's just the 14th game of his NFL career where he has failed to have over 50 yards rushing. He has played 79 games, 14 games now. That's it. Those are the games that he has not gotten over 50 yards rushing. So this is something that just doesn't happen very often. He had just 2 catches for 12 yards. So when you look at it from a scrimmage yard standpoint, definitely his lowest output of the year. But the Steelers being able to contain him, 14 carries for 45 yards. Now, I know a lot of times one thing we have noticed about Taylor is like the second half has been really where he really starts to turn it on. And the Colts offense was behind the 8 ball. You're trailing by 10 going into halftime. So the running game, it has to be a part of the offense, but you're also trying to throw the ball a little bit more. So I think they were thrown out of the rhythm a little bit of the running game, and that plays into it. But just, 14 carries for 45 yards, you got to tip the cap. That's a pretty good performance there by that Steelers defense.
Yeah, give the Steelers credit. I mean, we talked about a lot of mistakes that the Colts made, but also, some of those mistakes that were made was caused by the Steelers. They played pretty well. Give them credit for what they did and give them credit for doing a good job against the run, against the Colts, stopping Jonathan Taylor and the Colts offense. So part of that was the reason, and part of that, the Colts are throwing the ball early in the game, and you've seen that in the other games early in the season that the Colts have started off the game throwing the ball, moving the ball down the field, and it's been successful for them. The Colts have been successful moving the ball, throwing the ball down the field, scoring points, and getting up on people. And then the second half or later in the game, then you see the Colts and emphasize more of the run game and with Jonathan Taylor, but today it got behind, so it made it difficult to catch up and by just running the ball. So you get the big plays, hopefully, in the passing game, so you can kind of get back in the game a lot sooner and have an opportunity to win a football game. But unfortunately for the Colts, they didn't play well enough to do that. So now you just have to look at how you played and where you made your mistakes at. But I'm not worried about that. I believe that Jonathan Taylor is gonna be fine, and he's going to do a nice job. The Colts are going to be fine. They're going to do a nice job, and they'll get things rectified and moving forward, and they'll play pretty well, and hopefully they'll play well. And you got to look at it like this: at the beginning of the year, if someone said, you know what, you have an opportunity to be 8-2 going into the bye week, would you take it? I think if you ask most of the teams in the National Football League, they say yes. I would take being 8-2 at that point in the season where you have 7 games to go, and then you're going into the bye week. Get some guys healed up, especially the guys that the Colts have, banged up. You get Charvarius Ward back. I think you would take that and be very happy with it. So, you know what? Yes, this was a bad game for the Colts. They didn't play well, but I like where the Colts are right now in regards to the schedule. They're 7-2 and have a chance to go 8-2 going into the bye.
Very well said there, Bill. And I mean, like you mentioned with Taylor, I think we all agree the same with Daniel Jones. It was a
Yep.
day that, for him, you could tell the body language. He was just like, man, it's just bad break after bad break. He had 2 strip sacks, and then he threw 3 interceptions, so 5 total turnovers by Daniel Jones. But I would agree with Bill. I think you feel the same way. That this is just a notch on that graph that, every now and then you'll have some ups and you'll have one that goes down. I think this is just a little blip on that radar for Daniel Jones. And Bill, the beauty of the NFL is, you know what? You get another chance to take that
Yes.
sour taste out of the mouth, and it comes in just a week. And for this team, it might come a little sooner because this week's a little wild.
Yeah.
I don't
A little
know if you've
different.
heard,
It's a little different.
especially you, Bill. I don't know if you have heard, but you better pack up because you're heading to
Yeah.
Berlin. And along with the Colts, as they are going to be the home team as they travel across the world to take on the Atlanta Falcons in Berlin. And that's going to be their first chance to get this bad taste out of their mouth. Now, the Falcons, they lost to the Patriots on Sunday. They're now 3-5, but you can't judge a book by its cover. They have explosive weapons all over their offense, highlighted by Bijan Robinson, who does it from behind, he's a great running back, but he's also incredibly active in the passing game. He can do it from both sides, run and pass. And then Drake London, he is turning
Yes.
into one of the better receivers in all of football. I think he had 3 touchdowns in the game against the Patriots this Sunday. And they've got a really good defense, and that's kind of what Raheem Morris is known for as a defensive coordinator. So you look at it as a 3-5 team in the Falcons, but it is a very talented team from front end to back. So it's going to be a very tough task for the Colts as they travel across the world to take on the Atlanta Falcons in Berlin.
Yes, it is going to be a tough task. And you know what? The travel itself, to me, I think is one of those things you got to deal with, and it's not easy to deal with when you're traveling that far and going to play a game because you know what, your body clock's going to be off, the time is
Right?
going to be off, and it's an adjustment that you have to deal with, and it's very difficult. And I give the players a lot of credit for doing it and dealing with it and going out and playing at a high level. So, I know the Colts have a plan and how they want to do it, and hopefully the guys will be physically rested up and feel have a lot of energy and feel good going into the game. But it is tough. But you know what? They have a couple of days to unfortunately think about this loss and then put it behind them. Pretty much today and tomorrow, and after that, put it behind them and get ready for the Atlanta Falcons because, as you mentioned, they have some good talented players over there. So, they have the work cut out for them. But I think the Colts will be ready to play. And the important thing is how do they respond to this game
Right.
they just played? And good teams usually respond in a way, hey, let's fix our mistakes. Let's not panic. Let's just fix our mistakes. We know that we're a better team than this, that we can play better than this. We just need to go out there and do it. And if they respond that way and stay confident and still believe in themselves and their teammates, they should be okay. So hopefully they'll take that approach and be ready to play in Berlin next week.
When you talk about responding, and the last time the Colts lost this season, they responded with a big 40-6 victory over the Raiders and then rattled off 4 straight wins. That came back in week 4 when they lost to the Rams, and then a 4-game winning streak that they followed that up with. So we have seen this team bounce back from a loss very, very well. This loss does make them, 7-2 on the year, but as you mentioned, you get an opportunity now next week to go and make it right, and you could improve to 8-2 heading into that pivotal bye week for the Colts. Now, for Bill Brooks, you will not be with me next Sunday for instant reaction
No,
because you will, I think, while we're filming that, probably be on your way back to the States following that game in Berlin. So I'm going to be joined by Colts.com senior writer JJ Stankovitz. There are a couple flights that are coming home from Berlin. Now, I am staying in Indianapolis. I will be here local. JJ will be with you, but his flight is a little bit later, so we're going to be able to have JJ on for instant reaction next Sunday. But for you, Bill, safe travels home. Well, I guess safe travels to and home from Germany, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again really, really soon.
thanks, Casey. I appreciate it and look forward to talking to you real soon as well.
Of course. There you go. Tough loss for the Colts. As I mentioned, they fall to 7-2, but they are still in first place in the AFC South. And as we mentioned, that next game is in Berlin from Olympia Stadium. Locally in Indianapolis, that game will air at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time next Sunday. So a very early Sunday morning, but it should be an exciting game, and we will break it all down next Sunday. Final score from Pittsburgh, the Steelers defeat the Colts 27-20. Thank you so much for joining us here on Instant Reaction, an Indianapolis Colts podcast. For Bill Brooks, I'm Casey Vallier. We'll talk to you next Sunday.